Welcome back to my Final Fantasy XIV drama series. Today's drama story is about the Naked Kidnapper. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I am lucky enough to say I have not been personally involved in a lot of drama in MMOs. All the drama that's ever been close to me, I've only ever heard about through first or second-hand information, and I have never been directly involved. That's pretty good.
That's a penis.
This is a story of my interaction with an individual I thought was pretty dang toxic. Honestly, I don't think the drama isn't the juiciest, but I think there are funny moments to be had. All right, well, we like a good fun story. It's okay if there's no drama or even just a little tiny bit of drama, as long as it's a good story, of course. I first became serious about playing Final Fantasy XIV months after the Blizzard scandal. Just like so many WoW players, right? Like after the Blizzard scandal, they were just like, all right, time to try Final Fantasy XIV. Though I had done a free trial around the time of Stormblood and was a long-time Final Fantasy fan, World of Warcraft was my main MMORPG at the time, and I just couldn't see myself devoting my time and money to a second MMO. True, I couldn't do two MMOs. It's just Final Fantasy XIV for me. Nothing, no other MMO. Years later, and the news broke out. I felt disgusted with Blizzard and simply wished no longer to give them my money. Though I was ineligible for the new free trial, I decided to give Final Fantasy XIV another chance. Now, while I had used to play World of Warcraft, I was hardly the typical WoW player. I was a super casual. I had only begun playing in late Warlords or Draenor, and Legion had been my first expansion. I couldn't keep up with current item levels, I didn't raid, and I couldn't stomach the rep grind for flying in battle for Azeroth. It's like so hard for me to read like these expansion names because I'm like, whoa, never heard of them before, you know. Well, I mean, we hear a little bit in Hearthstone, but not everything from, because like Hearthstone basically uses the lore of World of Warcraft, so sometimes I hear it, but those words were like new to me. I don't know the expansions or places in World of Warcraft. Doing a few world quests and running dungeons on hard difficulty was the most I could bother with. The grind of WoW just did not appeal to me. No, I was one of those weirdos who spent all their time RPing instead. Ah, they're an RPer from World of Warcraft. Also, I have heard from my WoW friends that like WoW is really, really grindy. Like that game is designed to trap you. It's like never ending. It doesn't end. At least with Final Fantasy XIV, you have breaks. Like developers want you to take breaks. They're like, there's nothing really going on around this time. Like this is the lull. Just like have an event here or there. But then this is like the break. We're basically in the break time of Final Fantasy XIV. And it's nice. I'm glad we can like play other games and then come back. But WoW, just, you gotta be playing that like every day, all day. Grinding to get the good stuff. Not for me. I need my life. I need to do stuff. And here is where our story begins. With my character on Balmung, I was looking to get myself introduced to the Final Fantasy XIV RP scene. At this moment in time, I didn't have everything figured out with my character, but I had familiarized myself with a bit of the 14 RP culture. I learned pretty early on that the Balmung quicksand was just as infamous as Moonguard's Goldshire. Ah, okay, so Moonguard's Goldshire is the RP Balmung of World of Warcraft. I had also learned that areas in Balmung's steppes of Thals, such as Pearl Lane, were the spots that role players who were more interested in story rather than eroticism gathered. Okay, Pearl Lane. Is that the one I call like red light district? Is that where you like, okay, when you're in quicksands and you leave the door and you're in this like alley, you're in this alleyway, but like behind Sapphire, behind like the market board. I think that's Pearl Lane, is it? I used to call that like the red light district. And because like people would literally like lean against the wall there with their RP tags on. I was like, these guys are serious. So, okay, so they're the serious RPers. Okay. So I entered Pearl Lane and put on my RP tag. My character is a beautiful Viera of the Rava clan who is seductive and mischievous, yet gentle, graceful, and empathetic. At this point in my Viera's RP life, I hadn't had any notable encounters, but this soon would change. A Lalafell of ambiguous gender targeted my Viera, and I targeted back. We will call this Lalafell Blue. The next moment, Blue got down on their knees in a dramatic fashion and began begging and crying. Please, lass, by the 12, you've gotta freaking marry me. I'm begging ya. I'm begging ya, lass. This was absolutely ridiculous, and I was laughing about it. I was so caught off guard, and I was loving it. Now, because my Viera is empathetic and caring, she did not simply laugh at Blue and tell them to F off. Instead, she honestly felt quite concerned for Blue. She sensed Blue's pain and heartbrokenness and asked if they would like to get a drink and talk about it. Oh, that's nice. Let's go get a drink and talk about it. Receiving this well, Blue was beginning to open up their experience with repeated rejection, and it was honestly beginning to be a good character moment for them. And now, the subject of the story finally enters the scene. While my character and Blue continued to talk, a shadowy Highlander Hewer woman lurked menacingly in the background. We will call this Highlander Rogue. In the middle of my character's conversation with Blue, I received a slash tell from this Highlander. She informed me that she would attempt to abduct my Viera in broad daylight through the use of a sleep dart. Now, of course, I was intrigued, but also a little apprehensive about my Viera being kidnapped. On one hand, it was exciting and not something to ever happen to a character of mine in RP. On the other hand, it could easily result in a non-consensual. Okay, so that's like their lingo. Non-consensual. So it could easily result in a non-con situation. Rogue, however, assured me that it wouldn't involve any SA, sexual assault, whatsoever, as my character profile specified that I was not interested in non-con. And so I accepted her attempt to kidnap my character. We rolled for it, and I lost the roll. Oh, it's like D&D. Okay. So you guys like plan out a situation, and then you roll. You go /random and see like who wins for the story. Okay. I didn't know that. Rogue's sleep dart hit its mark and my character collapsed the next moment. As the cloaked rogue collected my character's slumbering body, Blue and a friend of theirs caught onto this kidnapping attempt. In character, Blue valiantly protested, "No way! I'm not gonna let you steal away the only lass to not turn around and laugh at me." Oh, that's so cute. Now, here's the first of Rogue's many red flags. My character was given a chance to defend herself, and she failed. But neither Blue nor their friend was given any chance to stop Rogue's kidnapping attempt. This could have been a great character moment for Blue, but sadly, Rogue did not seem to care about anyone's character arc but hers. After a long cast that surely someone could have interrupted, Rogue managed to teleport out of the alley with my character in hand. Blue was sadly helpless to prevent this from happening. Out of character, I brought this concern up to Rogue in a slash tell, and I was assured there was no way anyone could stop her teleporting due to her being in stealth. As I'm writing this now, I think this was borderline god modding. I mean, maybe. I wouldn't know, but maybe you guys can tell me. It sounds like, yeah, like because it was just their arc, their story, and other people couldn't roll for potential things in the story, it could be seen as, yeah, like god modding. In slash tell, I apologized to Blue for this, and thankfully they weren't very upset about it out of character. Having already been absconded into Rogue's party, I was given a free teleport to their new location. My character woke up in a random house somewhere in Lenosia, I believe. It was at that moment that the Highlander revealed herself. She wore hardly anything at all. Oh, okay, so was she wearing like something completely different in the last location, and then all of a sudden just like took off her cloak and was like wearing basically nothing? She was draped in the Highlander Hure version of the hempen camise, pantalettes, and some strappy leggings. Okay, we know that top very well. And it looks really, it looks skimpier on the Hure. It actually looks really awesome on the Hure. Basically, a strappy bikini look. It might not seem like it now, but her skimpy manner of dress is very important in this story. Immediately, my Viera was informed by Rogue that magical wards surround the abandoned house. So, even if my character somehow managed to swiftly evade past Rogue, she would not get far. And fighting Rogue directly would be a death wish. What the heck is this the OP supposed to do? It's like, you're trapped. My Viera replied sternly and with some apprehension, "What is it that you want?" Rogue replied with a question of her own, asking my Viera if she recognized the sketch of a Mikote woman by the name of Kimiko. My Viera shook her head, informing Rogue that she recognized no such woman. Rogue proceeded to go on a tirade, describing the Mikote as a prissy and unpleasant woman who publicly humiliated Rogue in the quicksand for Rogue's skimpy manner of dress. Rogue then told my Viera she was going to track this woman down and make that bitch pay. So basically, against her will, my Viera was being roped into some revenge scheme. Of course, my Viera was reluctant to accept this. In spite of her situation, she was quick to protest that though unpleasant people exist, it doesn't excuse doing them harm for petty reasons. In a rage, Rogue pushed aside a vase and other furniture to show her anger. She went on an insane rant about how my Viera has no idea what it was like to endure Ulda's dark criminal underbelly of human trafficking, and giving me very odd description of her having seen a Lalafell passed around. So basically this woman just kidnapped someone in broad daylight, all because a Mikote made fun of her in public for being very scantily clad. This was all just to get back at someone for making fun of her? Talk about petty. And the reason she dresses so skimpy is because she was trafficked? I feel like Opie is judging this half-naked here a lot. They're like, your story is meh, basically. Now, I don't have a problem with skimpy glams. For my Vieira, I like to use the Vieira race gear set and the idealized dancer set sometimes. I personally didn't like Rogue's glam because I think the Highlander hempen camise pantalettes are kind of ugly, but I wasn't judging. Wait, you are judging. And I don't know. I like it, but I can see how some people would find it skimpy. Whenever I dress my character skimpy in the game and I raid in a skimpy outfit, I feel weird. I'm like, this is not me. And then I like go back to my comfort outfits. It's so weird because I myself, IRL, don't like to wear skimpy, super skimpy things. And whenever I make my character wear skimpy things, I feel like this is not me. So I change. I still think it looks beautiful. If you want your character to rock it, go for it. I did think the whole reason for the kidnapping was incredibly petty, but that was fine, I thought. Just because the character behaves in a way in character doesn't mean the player agrees or condones with that behavior, right? Right? We'll find the answer later, they wrote in brackets. So anyway, as my Vieira sat and watched Rogue break furniture and go on a tantrum about what she dealt with in the past, she felt honestly afraid. And so reluctantly, she accepted Rogue's terms. Unwillingly, she would participate in this revenge scheme of hers and get back at this Kimiko woman. After all, it seemed like her only way to escape being held captive. Okay. So it's like, OP's like, I might as well do what this person wants me to do because I don't think I can get out of this. This is the only way her character could progress through her story in the RP world. Very pleased, Rogue promised her she would be well rewarded before blindfolding and dropping her off in the middle of nowhere. That was the end of that scene. After this, I began roaming around Ul'dah out of character, and Rogue, the player, invited me to fellowship, which I presumed was for the storyline she intended to plot out. What's a fellowship? Is that a link shell? We continued to talk about the scene, and I actually gave it a lot of praise because I had found it pretty exciting. Once again, having never been in a kidnapping scenario before. It could be a link shell or a free company. Pretty suddenly, Rogue asked me for my Discord, and being a fairly friendly person, I gave it to her. In a span of minutes, Rogue asked me on Discord for a voice call, which I yet again accepted. I heard Rogue's voice, and it turns out she was a he. I mean, I feel like most people would assume, like, most people in the game are guys. Not a problem for me. We aren't our roleplay characters, so it didn't matter to me if the player was a guy or a girl. We started talking about our characters, and I kept raving about how fun the previous scene was. I went on about how I thought it was interesting because my Vieira didn't get what she wanted in that scene, and so I really looked forward to seeing how she would deal with being forced to commit such a heinous act that she didn't believe in. It was then that Rogue clarified to me that his character didn't intend to hurt Kimiko, but rather merely scare her. Like, okay, it's not like being publicly made fun of makes it okay to stalk and terrorize someone. To me, he sounded weirdly apologetic and defensive of his characters. I really prefer avoiding conflicts with actual people, so I didn't bring those thoughts up. I just kept quiet. We stayed in the call and did a few roulettes. This is when Rogue revealed his Highlander's short temper out of character. We queued into the 1,000 maws of Totorak, and immediately a dapper-looking male Ellison player said to Rogue, "Put on some damn clothes, woman." I thought this was hilarious, but Rogue didn't. They were awfully pissed over voice. Way more than they should have been over a rando in a roulette. Put on some clothes, woman. Getting insanely pissed off at a random person's criticism of your character being half naked? I wonder where I remember that from. More and more, it felt like his in-character grudge with Kimiko might have been taken personally out of character as well. Okay, so the OP is putting two and two together. Like, this person just holds grudges and gets pissed off easily. We continued through the dungeon, and the complaints from Rogue kept coming. A tank that led the party took the wrong path, wasting us minor seconds. No toxicity in party chat, but on voice. Rogue was not having it. He went on about how A Realm Reborn dungeons are the easiest content in the game and kept making a big deal of the tank's mistakes. He then made sure to clarify that he's not toxic and that he's merely critical of gameplay. Dude, if you have to remind me that you're not toxic, it kind of makes me think you're a little toxic. Once again, I didn't make a big deal of his behavior or anything, as he was only being angry in our private voice call. So I merely brushed it aside. We eventually completed the dungeon, went out of the call, and said, "See you later" for the day. This is kind of funny, yeah. Imagine just meeting someone in the RP world and they're like, "Hey, got Discord?" And you're like, "Mm-hmm. All right, you want to jump on call right now?" "Yeah, sure, fine." Do roulettes. Find out they're this, like, toxic, angry person getting mad over a random in roulette, just telling them to put more clothes on. A few days had passed, and I had gotten myself better acquainted with Crystal's nightclub scene, having recently become a club dancer. Though doing that, I met a male aura that we'll call Knight. One day, I was running dungeons, and Knight wanted to tag along. Meanwhile, I was getting messaged by Rogue, who also wanted to run content. With two people both wanting my attention at that moment, I figured the right thing to do would be include them both. So I invited both Rogue and Knight to a party. Why not? What could go wrong? In the back of my head, I knew that Rogue had a pretty short temper from our last time running roulettes. I figured something bad could possibly happen, but I didn't really believe that it would. Boy, was I wrong. I honestly didn't know Knight very well, and it turned out they weren't exactly the best at their role. We randomly queued into Stone Vigil with Knight tanking as Dark Knight. I've never tanked in this game before, so I wouldn't know, but apparently Knight had subpar mitigation and did big pulls. Despite this, though, he was pretty chill. Meanwhile, our healer warned us that at his level, he did not have access to bigger heals. It went as well as you would imagine. Once again, Rogue had a lot of complaints about our tank's gameplay, and this time he said it over party chat. Oh no. After just 2 wipes, he just quit out of the dungeon and left us to finish it by ourselves. Once again, Rogue showed that he had a short fuse, and sadly, the 2 Final Fantasy XIV friends I had met just couldn't get along. I should have seen it coming, and I was laughing about it by the time it was over. After the run, Rogue went into my Discord DMs and apologized for leaving so abruptly, but continued to rip apart Knight's gameplay and even called him toxic. What? How is the Dark Knight toxic in this situation? Don't they realize they're the toxic one? A few days later, I got a slash tell from Rogue again. They offered to queue roulettes again for a bit of leveling. I was trying to do some leveling myself at the time, so I figured, why not? Oh no, they're gonna play with them again. We queued into the recently reworked Praetorium. The 4-player party and the reworked fights caught me off guard, but we got through it without a wipe. This is kind of recent. I slipped at the end with the reworked Gaia's fight, which again was still new for everyone. I had forgotten about benediction and failed to keep Rogue or myself alive right at the last moment. But the rest of our party took care of it. Oh no, I'm scared for OP now. I'm scared. What happened after this? Without another word, Rogue disbanded the party and continued to queue and level on his own. I could clearly see on my friends list that he was in the middle of a dungeon. Mind you, I was still a sprout and learning at the time, but still, not a word. He said nothing to me, and I could tell he was pissed off. No comments, but the general message was still very clear. He continued doing his leveling on his own, and I didn't say anything either. I just didn't feel like spending any more energy on him. Good. Oh, the OP was just like, yeah, go ahead. I'm not gonna message you. Another day, I sent him a slash tell, just really saying hello. I was certainly done doing content with him, yet still open to role-playing with him and continuing our story. Okay, so OP's reaching out for the RP story. His reply, who is this? Oh, snap. What the heck? They acting like they don't even know the OP now. Like, okay? You forgot the girl you got on voice with after our RP? After that treatment, I was completely done with him. I unfriended Rogue, left his fellowship, and moved on. It had become clear that he was just not a very good friend at all, and I was done. New number, who dis? Oh no. What the heck? Now, in character, I would have thought that maybe Rogue would have an issue with my character going off and not keeping to the terms we had agreed to. But it really seemed like his character didn't even care. Maybe Rogue had just forgotten about the whole kidnapping by then. My Viera had not forgotten, though, and she has brought up the experience a few times in character. Aw, that's cute. That's still part of her character's history. She once tried hiring a bodyguard and spent a long time being traumatized by her experience in Pearl Lane. But through it all, Rogue never again tried to pull anything on her. Lucky for my character, I suppose. Dude, it sounds like Rogue is looking for a friend to roleplay with and to do dailies. Maybe even harder content, I don't know. But in their mind, if they think you're a bad player, they want nothing to do with you. They're just so strange like that. The silver lining in this story was that Rogue inviting me to his fellowship made me aware of the fellowship finder in the game. And through this, I was able to discover my current FC and make much better friends on Final Fantasy XIV that I've known and stuck around with for the past year. It is an FC on Mateus. Hey, the RP server. So this story makes sense. It's all basically Mateus and Balmung. I began as a member of their cross-world link shell and not the FC proper, but I became so attached to their community that I paid for a server change and transferred to Mateus. Mateus is now my main server, and I am so happy to be part of my FC. We've been through a few ups and downs as far as creating an active and steady RP community, but it seems now that we've finally done so. So in a weird way, I have to thank Rogue for introducing me to the fellowship and by proxy introducing me to my wonderful FC. The end. I think that was a fun story. It's like not your typical drama story, but it was it's so funny that like you can run into these weird toxic people That's so awkward to like meet someone for the very first time in voice call, and then they just show their true colors instantly. They're like toxic about roulettes. ARR dungeons are so easy. What is this tank doing? Why are they pulling so much when they can't even mitigate properly? Saying all this stuff to someone you just met. And I'm sure like people in the RP world have experienced people like this, where it's like Rogue just sounds like a person who just only cares about themselves. If it doesn't benefit them, they're out of there. They took things to heart too. If someone didn't like their glam, it sounded like Rogue would be like super angry. What's important is that you like your own glam. It doesn't matter what other people think. Not gonna lie, I'm not into RP, but if I do try it out, I'd want to do it with /random D&D style. Yeah, this is a good story to cover, because now a few people who had no idea that this was a thing could be like, maybe I might give it a go. Just know that there's bad things in every category, in every game. Like, I just happen to cover the drama, right? I just hope people don't hear this and be like, that sounds horrible. I'll never try it. There's good sides to it. I just covered the bad sides, or the funny, toxic sides. It's not always like this. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this Final Fantasy XIV drama story. If you have any of your own drama stories that you'd like me to share and read out anonymously, feel free to reach out to my Discord, discord.gg/Pathra.